Okay, we have people that have experienced dark nights where the only thought is suicide. Now, some people actually follow through after probably being through those trenches for so long, and some people come out of it and others don't survive. And what's left are the people outside, the people wondering what happened here, why did they do it, and how does it affect me in this whole situation? It's also a very scary subject to speak about, and it's a subject that's so dark and put under the carpet so often by society that people out there don't want to come out and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, or whoa, I'm here, this is what I've experienced. So I'd like to say welcome to Ayanna, my guest for today. And first of all, before we even start, I'd say thank you so much for being here, because I know this is like so scary to speak up about it and to say, you know what, this is my experience and this is what how things could have been different. So I commend you for that, and I appreciate that so much. But I know that by coming out and speaking up and taking that courage to do it, you'll save so many lives, and I guess that would be a good thing, right? So yeah. Welcome, Ayanna. Thank you so much for being here. Just tell me a bit about your experiences with suicide, and then we'll take it from there.
So I've known people, like acquaintances in my life, who committed suicide. I had a supervisor when I used to work in Fallbrook at a wedding venue. I just gotten the job, and so I was just getting to know everybody. And then he committed suicide out of nowhere, and it really hurt a lot of people. A lot of people were close to him in the community. And even for me, and I didn't know him that well, I was like, I could have said something. I felt that guilt. You know, I could have said something. They had a celebration in life for him. I was able to go, but, you know, and I've had other acquaintances from my previous religious community who've committed suicide. And it just breaks people's hearts. It's really difficult. It's really hard when you're a loved one or a survivor to understand what happened. You know, what led that person down that road.
Yes, thank you. Now I want to go back to how you felt, like the guilt and how you felt after that. Even though some of the people you didn't know, right? So well, they were just acquaintances. But even as acquaintances, how did you feel, and how did you deal with that realization that, wow, they just ended their lives?
You know, I had compassion for them, because I know that they're at a point in their life where they were just in so much pain. You know, I had compassion. I had compassion for the people that were affected. So I just tried to see it in the lens of having compassion for people who suffer on both sides of the issue, the people who felt so horrible that their only way out was to hurt themselves, you know, and end their life. So I had compassion, but I also realized that I have a responsibility to the world and to people to be compassionate, because I don't know people's story.
Yes. Thank you for that. And how did you feel as well, like that guilt and the knowing that, let me just take it a step back. I found my uncle, he committed suicide, and I got there too late, right? So I didn't manage to save him. And I lived with that guilt and that what if, and you mentioned that, like, what if, why didn't I see the signs? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do something about it? Why didn't I speak to him? Why didn't I love him more? Why didn't I? And So how did you feel that people around this person who lost their lives, how did you deal with those kind of emotions?
So one thing that for a person to heal from that's lost someone from that, I think one of the first steps, it's like stages of grief, and then by the end of it, you kind of have to realize that you just, oftentimes they don't say anything or they don't do anything. They just make this decision. I learned that when that decision is made, it's in the spur of the moment. And so you kind of have to let it go and be like, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault.
Yes. Yes. And can you love yourself enough to actually say, because it's easy to say, it wasn't my fault, but can you actually love yourself enough to embody that and say, it really wasn't my fault?
Yeah, it takes time. It takes time. It's like I said, there's different, everyone goes through grief differently, and it takes time to build that self-love and to recover from that, but it's possible. You just have to learn. Like, I know I can't think of any organization in particular, but when sometimes that happens to people, they use that and they're like, I want to do something to make this better. I want to increase awareness. And that's another thing you can do. You can be an advocate. But from there to there, it takes time. And even when you're ready to be an advocate, even then you still have to deal with those feelings. So I think it's just a process. It's a journey.
Yes, like everything else, and I suppose you grow and learn through it. So I wanted to switch that over as well, because I know there's a lot of people, because I've also experienced times when you have suicide ideation, right, where you think, you know what, it would be easier. I mean, not like when I was younger, when it was easier to just like drive my car off the bridge. So how did you, have you ever experienced that, and how did you cope with that?
So actually, if you look at some statistics and some studies, the people who survive or who are survivors, I call them survivors. This is really a difficult journey. Well, there's survivors as in survivors who survived like a suicide attempt, and then the people who lost somebody, they're more likely to actually commit suicide later. People who've actually lost people from that. So it's a good thing you mentioned that, because when we lose someone like that so suddenly, we actually go through that depression. And so just to let you know that is more likely. You're more likely to have suicidal ideation when you lose someone from suicide. But for me, I've definitely had dark times for various reasons. I've lost people, not to suicide, but I've lost people very close to me. I've had a lot of difficulties in my life feeling like I belonged. And I've also had a lot of issues with anxiety, mental health stuff. So I've had many times, especially when we have times like this, when the world is in so much pain and there's so much darkness. Sometimes you just wake up and you're like watching what's happening in the world. Is like, you don't feel like you belong here sometimes, because you get this feeling like the world doesn't value life. What's the value of my life? When this world is so dark, or when I feel so dark, I feel so sad, depressed, so much pain, it can be very hard to see the light when you're feeling that way. But the reason I'm here, because I've been through those feelings and I go through those feelings. But I'm realizing, there's so many people stepping up to the plate and be like, no, we are for the light. We are for love. We are for peace.
Yes, I love that. And I always find that if we can, I know there's a lot of darkness around war and whatever's happening. However, if we just have these conversations and we show people that there is a way, there is light, and there is love, and there is a solution if we look for it, right? So I'm going to put it back to you again. Now, what solution do you find? How do you see the light when you're in those dark places?
Well, I'm a spiritual person. I believe I have a relationship with God or the divine or the universe. And I wonder to myself, why was I put here at this time in history? What's the value of my presence? I can't give up on that. And that's, I think, when you're in a depression, it's very hard to put yourself into that mentality that you have a purpose still. And I think that's what people need. They need to find their meaning and purpose again. People who are like that need someone to be like, what are you going to do tomorrow? I've heard of stories of people about to jump off a bridge, and then the person comes like, what are you going to do tomorrow? Just to put them in that mindset. Like, what's their purpose? What are you going to do with your life? And that's something that we feel is lost when we're in those dark moments, especially if you have like clinical depression or something, you know. It's very hard to get back to that mindset, but that's where the light is. When you get that from connection with others, it's very difficult to find that when you're isolated. And I've been through a lot of isolation in my life. And so I know how dark it can be. But man, when I finally had the courage to speak up to someone that cares about me, or I just, went to a crisis line. I've done that before. 988, excellent resource. Just to talk to somebody about how you're feeling.
Yes. But and how did you get, okay, I'd just like to, before I ask you the next question, sorry. Yes, 9988, that is an excellent resource. So if you're feeling really down and you feel like there's nowhere to turn, please just call 988 in the US. Thank you for that, Ayanna. Now, I'd like to ask you again, so how did you get out of that isolation? Because when you're depressed and scared and alone, it's so hard to step out of that. How did you do that?
So I did have my family around me, but even I have a tendency to like to be alone. So even then, I didn't really go to them about my problems. But I think things really started turning around for me because I decided I wanted to go back to college, and I did. And one of the things they had available was free therapy sessions. So I got right on that, and that changed my life because after that, I got involved with the health services department, and I got a job, and I presented workshops for students on subjects like suicide awareness and prevention. So that's what changed my life. And from that point on, I started reaching out to more and more people. And I found my peers. I didn't even recognize I was a peer until I got involved with people like Devin and Josh, that's when my life started really changing. So I started to understand I'm not the only one who's had these life experiences and these difficulties. And I can look to them as an example of how I could take my trauma and all of that and turn it into something beautiful. So finding your peers is really important. I really advocate people go to their local NAMI. I'm doing that right now. I'm doing a peer-to-peer training course right now, and it's been great to talk to my peers and learn some important things about self-care, about relationships. They go into everything. And get in contact with your local NAMI. They're great.
Okay, thank you. So that's another resource, NAMI. And if you want to do the peer-to-peer experience, go and check it out. Thank you, Ayanna. I know I keep cutting back, but so that's now you found a way. So have you ever, now that you found your way, you're starting to find your peers and you're finding meaning within the darkness, are there any times when you actually feel that depression and that darkness again?
Oh, yeah. It's a day-to-day thing with me. It's, like I said, I'm an empath. I'm an empathetic person. So when things around me happen that are bad or depressing, and I have anxiety. I recently got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. So I'm constantly dealing with my anxiety, and that can make me depressed. It's a constant battle for me. So yeah, it's a day-to-day thing for me to fight back that stigma too. The self-stigma is really difficult for me.
Yes.
Because if you I've always had anxiety my whole life. So when you go through that your whole life and you're always the black sheep and no one can understand why you're weird or why you're always scared, it's really hard to break that stigma you've had your whole life. So, and that's, self-esteem issues and, mental health issues. It's like, it's a journey that lasts a lifetime. It really is. And every day, everyone has a different way of handling darkness in their life. Everyone not everyone's the same with it, but I can say from my experience, it's a learning experience. It's humbling. You get humbled by it because you realize, I'm realizing more now than ever, because I'm doing in-person stuff at the college again. I'm around people like I wasn't before. I'm learning that I have to rely on people. I have to be a part of a team. I have to let people know how I'm feeling. I have to be open about what I'm going through, or who I am. And that takes you have to be humble. You have to be humble to tell somebody who you actually are, how you're actually feeling, and ask for help. It really is. So anyways.
Well, and that's difficult, but also difficult for a lot of people. But as you do it with practice, you get better and better and better. Now that you're in person and you're having connection with people and you're starting to learn about relationships and all that, how is that helping you with your confidence and building you up?
Oh yeah, it's definitely is. I think a lot of us can relate to like going through COVID and being like more isolated and going back into the world. I just got into that later. And now I'm going into it. I'm going through that transition. And man, yes, I am. I feel like I'm growing more in the past like 2-3 months than I have in the past like 2-3 years, And so I am growing, and when I first got into it, I'm like, oh great, what did I get myself into, but because I joined the Active Minds Club at the college I'm at, which is a mental health organization dedicated to spreading mental health awareness on college campuses. So I'm involved with them, and so I'm really active in what I'm doing, but I'm learning that you have to balance your self-care, your self-understanding, and also putting yourself out there to be an advocate, and also doing your classwork, and also working. So it's like it's something you have to get used to managing, especially if you have issues with anxiety. Like I do.
Yes. I actually love that, because now I think probably one of the most difficult things to do, especially when you're depressed and you don't want to be seen and you want to isolate, is to speak up and to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. So I'm loving the way you actually forcing yourself into those situations. And how are you feeling now that you're forcing yourself into those situations as you do them more and more and more?
So I would say it's a daily challenge for me. I'm learning that I have to set boundaries. I'm trying to learn what those boundaries are so I'm not overwhelmed. So I've talked to my supervisors, my advisor for the club, my supervisor at work, and I contacted the Disability Resource Center at my college. So I'm trying to get support. I have a mentor. I have a mentorship with a counselor at the community college with the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, which I'm glad I'm able to do, to get some guidance for my academic goals and everything. So I'm trying to get support now, and I'm also trying to find where my boundaries are so I can take on these roles without becoming overwhelmed with them. So That's what I'm trying to figure out right now. And I'm thinking, now that I'm kind of getting over the initial fear of meeting new people, I think I'm starting to roll with it better. But like today, I finally remembered I got to go on my walk. Like that's something I got to do to help regulate those neurotransmitters, get that dopamine going, all that stuff. I need to do those things, and to be healthy, when you have struggles like I do, and it's a daily battle with anxiety or whatever, you have to really learn those skills of self-care. You have to, because if you don't, then you're not going to be as effective. You're not going to be as happy with what you're doing in life, especially if you're putting yourself out there. So that's another thing I recommend people try to learn to do. It takes time, but you got to learn to pace yourself too.
Yes, and be kind to yourself. Ayanna, I want to just also go back, and you're talking about this is a daily struggle for you, going through the anxiety, going through the depression. How do you get up in the morning? What do you do?
What I do, thankfully today I remembered, I got up and I'm like, oh, great. I'm feeling all these feelings. I'm anxious. And I'm like, and then I told my boyfriend, I'm scared of myself. And he's like, didn't say anything to me. And I was like, I was thinking about it, and a voice in my head said, get a hold of yourself. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go outside and take a walk by myself. I don't need to be with anybody. And so,
Yes.
What helps me is realizing that I need a moment to myself, because I'm a kind of person that needs a lot of time to myself. So in the morning, I if I have work or anything, I get in the morning, I get ready and I go to work. But I think I'm a work in progress with that. I'm still trying to learn my routine for self-care. I've been praying. I used to not pray at all because of life experiences, but I've been praying more now than ever, just because I think we need prayer in this world. So I've been praying a lot. I've been getting involved with different groups. Like I'm with the peer-to-peer group, and so that's what helps get me up. Is like knowing that I have something. I have a life right now. Like before, I didn't have as much going on, so it was easier for me to stay in like my anxiety and my. Sometimes I get in this self-hatred rant in my head. But when I have structure, like I have structure right now, it actually gives me a reason to go anywhere. Like I got to go to work. I got to help students at the counseling office. I got to do my homework. So for me, when I don't have structure and a schedule or things I got to do, that's when I'm really not happy and really struggle. I need to have structure, and I need to have things I'm looking forward to or things I feel responsible for. So and that helps with depression too. It's if you have something to look forward to, it's a lot easier to not fall into a tunnel, a dark tunnel.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that. Thank you, Ayanna. Now, tell me before we go, I'd just like to ask you what, and you've given so much, but your last piece of advice, for the want of a better word, to people who are struggling out there, who at this moment, besides, like we'll go over the things, of course, if you're really struggling, please call 988 and get help, or ask someone for help. But what advice would you give someone that is like struggling?
Like you said, 988, reach out to someone. Reach out to someone is really important. It's really important that you do that, because when you reach out to someone, they can help reframe the situation. Because when you're in your mind, you're not seeing these others' perspectives about your life and about your value and about who you are and what you bring to the table in this world. So it's really important that you reach out, go outside, take a walk, and just, be in the moment and be aware about what you're feeling. Explore those feelings, but then let someone know. Contact 988. Let someone know what's going on so they can help you. And like I said, taking walks really helps me. That's been proven to be really helpful for people with depression. So Going outside, taking a walk, find support. Contact NAMI. Find support groups that can help you. And I know it could be a challenge. It took me a long time to figure out how to navigate finding a therapist. I have a therapist now, and she's great, and she listens to my struggles. It's just to have someone to talk to. So sometimes when you're going through these things, you want to talk to your friends and family, but you realize that they're not really equipped to handle all of your problems. So finding a therapist is really important. Having a team, talk to your primary care physician, get referred to a psychiatrist, psychologist, or therapist, and get a support group. Find who the people in your life that are really supportive of you. Not totally latch on to those people. Don't latch on too much, but take care of yourself, do self-care, eat healthy, Do things you enjoy, even if you don't feel like doing it. Like, because sometimes when you're depressed, you don't feel like doing anything. But take baby steps to do something with your life. But in the moment when you're really feeling that bad, resist the urge to isolate. That's my best advice.
Yes. Thank you, Ayanna. And that's probably the most important thing right now. I mean, there's so much here. So re-listen to this beautiful section and this beautiful show today. But the most important is don't isolate. Don't isolate. Call 988 if you've got a problem. And remember, there's always someone out there that will show you the way or has a hand, and people and that love you, even though you feel very unlovable at that moment. Thank you, Ayanna. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being here, and thank you for speaking up, and for giving your beautiful advice and perspective on this subject. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye for now.